Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Tech Tuesday. My name is Vanessa with ITS Communications, and today we're going to be talking about PubMed Basics with Andy Hickner. He's our Education and Outreach Librarian at the Wood Library here on campus. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know I am recording today's session, so if you need to go back over any material we discuss, or if you even want to share this with colleagues who may not have been able to attend today, I'll be sending a follow-up email to you later on this afternoon with a link to the recording, as well as other links that Andy discusses about how to use PubMed and where you can go for support. I also have everybody's microphones on mute. That's just to avoid some background noises, since we do have quite a few people who've registered for today's session. But if you have any questions at any point during the session, please feel free to type it in the chat or to just raise your hand if you want to come off the mic to ask your question, and I can do that for you. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Andy. Thanks for joining us today, Andy.
My pleasure, Vanessa. It's great to be back with everybody for Tech Tuesday. Today, we are going to start out by defining the relationship between Medline and PubMed. We'll look at some advanced techniques to refine and troubleshoot your searches. We'll talk about medical subject headings, or MESH, which some of you may have already heard of, and the role that they play in a PubMed search. And we'll briefly go over some other potential sources of literature that you can use to supplement your PubMed search. I'm going to start out with a few minutes of lecture, but most of this session is going to be jumping right into PubMed and using it to find articles. So we'll have a few minutes of lecture, and then I'll move on forward into the demo. I also have a couple of poll questions to help you check your knowledge, and we'll leave a little time at the end to answer your questions. And I have a couple breaks built in as well to just see if anybody has questions. You are welcome to throw any questions that come up in the chat throughout the session. And also, I want to encourage people to, if there's a particular thing that you do in PubMed, a tip that you have that you want to share with your colleagues, that's also welcome, so everybody can learn from each other. So let's start with a quick icebreaker poll. Let me drop this link in the chat. My poll everywhere is pollev.com/Andy Hickner, and you can do that either on your computer or on your phone. Give everybody a minute just so we can get a sense of what the composition is here. This is useful for me so I can see kind of where people are coming from. Give it another moment. Okay, so it looks like we are mostly research staff. And then we have several students, and then we have a couple of you who are faculty. Don't have any clinicians today. Thanks, everybody. So let's jump in. What is PubMed? It's a free search engine maintained by the National Library of Medicine, which is part of the NIH. The primary thing that we use PubMed for is finding articles in biomedical journals. PubMed is a free interface for searching the Medline database. Medline is selective in terms of what it indexes. American journals like JAMA and New England Journal of Medicine tend to be overrepresented. Journals from other countries and research that's published in any language besides PubMed tends to be a little underrepresented. A journal might have existed for years before it is published in any language besides PubMed. And another thing that's missing are meeting abstracts, conference proceedings. Often research will be available as a meeting abstract in other searches like Google Scholar or Scopus before it gets published as an article and indexed in PubMed. So again, to recap, Medline is selective in terms of the coverage. You can also find preprints of NIH-funded research in PubMed. Medline indexes several thousand biomedical journals. Like PubMed, it's freely available and maintained by taxpayers through the NLM. One important difference between Google or Google Scholar and Medline is that Medline traditionally has been indexed by humans, whereas Google indexing is done by Google's automated web crawler. So Medline has transitioned to some degree of machine indexing, where they're using AI to automatically apply some of the index terms. But a lot of the basic information is supplied by the journal when an article is published. So the metadata is very structured. It's sort of like a big database, whereas Google Scholar, it's just kind of like a black box. The web crawlers are doing everything. And we don't really know the degree to which humans are involved in Google Scholar indexing. So PubMed is not the only way to search Medline, by the way, but it is the most common way to search it because it's free. We also have Medline through the Ovid platform, which has somewhat more powerful functionality if you're doing advanced searching. We librarians use Ovid a lot for that reason, but it does have a learning curve, and for the average searcher, PubMed is sufficient. PubMed doesn't just include Medline indexed content. It has, got the reference on the site. It has a different journal selection process and additional articles, some of which are part of a third database that's also managed by the NLM called PubMed Central, or PMC. PubMed Central is like where you'll find full text of NIH funded of articles that report NIH funded research. And a lot of you who have been involved in publishing NIH-funded research will have gone through that whole process of depositing in PubMed Central. So one of the advantages of Medline compared to Google and Google Scholar is that it has something called a controlled vocabulary, which, among other things, helps solve that problem of having to write down a gazillion synonyms for related concepts. Medline's controlled vocabulary is called medical subject headings, or MESH. MESH searches synonyms and related concepts so that you don't have to type every variation out. On the right side of this slide, we have a list of keywords called entry terms. And what an entry term is, if you type one of those entry terms on the right, PubMed will automatically find and add the MESH term healthcare disparities to search for all of these synonyms and variations. This is called automatic term mapping. PubMed is designed so that you can search it without knowing anything about MESH, but an understanding of MESH can be very useful when researching topics where there's a lot of variety in how it's described, or if you're getting a large number of search results and you want to try to get a more relevant set of results. We'll get into MESH in a little more detail later in the session. So I'll pause for a minute. It doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat yet, so I'll just move on. All right, so now we are going to move into the demo. And we are going to work through an example search. And I'll drop this in the chat, just in case anybody wants to try it on their own. So our example search is, does screening for lung cancer using low-dose CT, computer tomography, reduce mortality from lung cancer? We used to use this in the first year medical curriculum for our small group activities. In real life, since this is a clinical question, I would start my search in UpToDate rather than PubMed because there's probably already a review and appraisal of the evidence in UpToDate. So we would find the relevant literature faster in UpToDate than we would in PubMed. But I'm going to use it today just because it's a nice, straightforward learning example. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share for a moment and switch over to my browser. Okay, so now we are looking at the library homepage, which is where we're going to start. library.weill.cornell.edu, bookmark it if you haven't already. PubMed is linked under popular e-resources over here on the left. You got to scroll down a little bit. Always use this link instead of pubmed.gov because this link will allow you to get links to full text through the Wood Library's journal subscriptions. So if I click on that, you can see at the end of this URL, there's a little parameter that tells PubMed that I'm a Weill Cornell person, and you can always bookmark this URL for easy access. So let's go back to our search question in the chat. So take a minute and put in the chat, what are some queries you might try? How would you approach this? I'll give you all a moment. What concepts would you combine? So while you're thinking about that, probably the simplest way I would approach this would be start out with just a simple keyword search, low dose CT, lung cancer, screening. So we're kind of treating it like we would a Google search. And this gets us a little over 2,000 results. So the first thing I'm going to do now is I want to go to advanced, which is linked here right under the search bar. I'll scroll down and I want to check my search details. And I can do that under here, string search details, click on this little greater than sign. And this is telling me in a very transparent manner exactly how PubMed is interpreting my query. Now, this is something Google doesn't do. Again, with Google, it's all like kind of opaque. It's happening behind the scenes, and we don't know what the algorithm's doing. Whereas PubMed, it tells you this is exactly what we're searching in which field. I always check the search details because PubMed does sometimes interpret your terms in weird ways. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm looking down here at the translations. And this is telling me for each of my terms, how is it interpreting that? So we have CT, it's translated lung cancer. You can see where it's translating to lung neoplasms and different combinations of lung and cancer. For screening, it's mapping it to also to diagnosis. And then let's see, mass screening, early detection of cancer. So it's you can see how it's doing a little extra work with the translation so that we don't have to type all that stuff out. So did any of these concepts fail to translate correctly based on what you can see here? So if you look at CT, what is it doing? It's actually mapping to journals, Journal of Computer Tomography, Communication Theory, Child Teenagers, Cancer Therapies. So anyway, it seems to be having a hard time with the concept of CT. PubMed often has a hard time with translating abbreviations, which of course we use a lot in medicine. So let's try out spelling computed tomography. Instead, well, I'll just click the back button and type out the full thing. Okay, so this gets us more results, about 800 more results. We didn't really look at the relevance of the results in the previous search, but you know, you could compare. I think if you looked at the top several, we'd be getting higher relevance in our results. So this is a pretty big number of results. And you know, the best match, this is the default search ranking in PubMed. And it sort of corresponds to relevance ranking, but you know, you're not necessarily going to find the best article in that first page of results. PubMed tries its best, but it's not always, it doesn't have a good way of saying this article is the best available, the best and most current available evidence on this question. And so we want to spend more time reviewing results than we do in like a Google search. And actually, I mean, when you think about it, even Google search relevance is not that great for a lot of things. So 28, almost 2,900 results, I would never have time to look over all those. So I like to try to get my number of results down. This is really common when we're searching PubMed, and there are various techniques that we can use when there are too many results for us to review. When I have too many results, one thing I do is I can sometimes limit my search to review articles. Sometimes that makes sense. And we'll use the filters over here on the left. So the filters are kind of like what you see in, like, for example, like Amazon.com when you're trying to filter by product or whatever, or like color of the shoes that you're looking for. You can see with the date limit, and then these article types, this is where we'll find, we'll be able to limit by publication types. So these are going to look a little different for you. You can log in and create a PubMed account if you don't already have one. And then once you're logged in, you can customize this list. I'm going to click the systematic review filter, and that gets us down to 67 results, which is actually, that's a lot of systematic reviews. In terms of other filters, you know, like if you're an OBGYN, you might be using the female filter a lot. If you, let me click on additional filters, and you can see we have species filters for those of you who are doing animal research. We have age filters. So if you're like a geriatrician, you could use the age filter. If you're a neonatologist, then you'll do newborn, etc. So this can help you get really granular as well. I'm just going to click cancel. And let's take a look at the results next. So our top result here is a Cochrane review. I'm just going to open that up. And let's take a look at an article record. So first thing over here, like our full text links are over on the right. This actually is available in PubMed Central for free over here. For articles that aren't available through PubMed Central, we want to look for this red Get It button. We have a video that I'll share toward the end showing how to use the Get It button to get full text of articles. So we have all the basic article information, the metadata, the abstract. It was a very lengthy abstract. Conflict of interest statements, all the figures. We can see that this is an update of a previous version of the review. This similar articles feature is really useful when you found like maybe one relevant article, and you can, this gives me like other similar articles. I can scroll down further, and this one has a list of references included in the review, along with links to them in PubMed, which is actually fairly unusual in PubMed, but it's very useful. I don't know when they added this feature, but I really like it. I'm going to scroll down. Down, down, down. Normally, you don't have to scroll this far. This is a very unusual amount of detail for a PubMed record. Let's see. Okay, and then once we get all the way down to the bottom, this is where we get our medical subject headings, our mesh terms, and then also our publication types. I'm going to take a minute before we move into mesh and just look at that question in the chat. Elaborate about use of Boolean operators for search strategy. Okay, that's a great question, Mohammed. So let me go back to my search really quick. You can see I actually didn't use any Boolean operators for this particular search. The default Boolean operator in PubMed is and. So it just combined all of these concepts with and. If you are searching for, if you're using synonyms or related concepts, then you would combine those with or. So for example, if we wanted to search for, let's see, lung cancer screening and we could do like, I'm trying to think of a good example. We could do, if we wanted to compare two different modalities of treatment for lung cancer, we could do something like lung cancer therapy or treatment or management. And that's when we would bring in ors. On the advanced search, there's also functionality built in here where you can combine different parts of your search. So we'll do the same thing, treatment. We could do therapy. And then this is where I do the Booleans. I'll set that as or, treatment or therapy or management. So you can see the advanced search builder lets us get a little more structured in terms of that. Those are the basics of the Booleans. Oh, you'll also see that there's a not operator, which, if you're getting a large number of irrelevant results and you want to, like, there's a pattern to those irrelevant results, you can take that, take some terms that represent the irrelevant results and knot them out. But you want to use this with caution because sometimes it has unintended consequences and you don't want to like necessarily exclude articles that might be relevant. All right, let's go back to our PubMed record. And let's take a closer look at these mesh terms. You can see lung neoplasms. So the mesh term, it's using the term neoplasms instead of cancer. But if I search lung cancer, it knows what I'm talking about. So I could find other articles on diagnostic imaging of lung cancer by a left click, and I can either send this directly to a PubMed search, or I could search in the mesh database, which I will do now, just so you can see what that looks like. So now it sent us to the interface for the mesh database. And this is kind of what the mesh entry is going to look like. Up here we have the what's called the scope note, which is the definition. Our subheadings here, these can be very useful in drilling down to a specific aspect of a topic. So in this case, diagnostic imaging, we could search multiple ones. We could do diagnosis or diagnostic imaging. And if we go back and, sorry, let me go back. I want to have, is there a way to pull up my previous, and that's fine. So anyway, these can be a really powerful way to focus your search. Our entry terms, remember we looked at these earlier at the beginning. If I type in lung cancer, then, or cancer of the lung, it'll still map to the mesh term. And then at the very bottom here, we have the mesh tree. So the tree, think of like like these are like branches of the tree trunk. So the tree trunk is here, and then all the little branches goes from the most specific to the broader concepts. So if we wanted to focus on a particular type of lung cancer, we could drill down that way. You can see that lung neoplasms, it actually falls under other different mesh terms in multiple spots. So it's a respiratory tract cancer. It's also a lung disease, etc. So another thing we can do is restrict to mesh major topic. What this does is gets us a smaller but more relevant number of results. So let's just try this. I'll show you what this does. First, we'll try it without restricting it. I'll click Add to Search Builder and then click Search PubMed. Okay, that gets us 29,000 results. Go back and let's see what happens when we restrict it to the major topic. Do the same thing, click Add to Search Builder, search PubMed. That doesn't seem right. Probably should have tested this out. Oh, it's because I didn't click diagnostic imaging. Oh, interesting. It didn't do that. Okay, so apparently this doesn't work with the subheading. Or it could also, yeah, I'm not exactly sure why that isn't working. Let's change this and we'll just search the entire thing. Okay, so let's go to our advanced search and you can see what the effect of the restricting it to major does. So when we restrict it, we get 236,000. If we don't restrict it, we get a slightly larger number, 285,000. So these are probably going to be higher relevance for the topic. All right, I see we don't seem to have any questions so far. So I will move right on back to our slides. First, I'm gonna take a quick second and activate our next poll question. Let's see. Bear with me, everybody. I should have just done these as Zoom polls. I think I kind of forgot to do that. Okay, back in my slides. Vanessa, can we see my slides now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So PubMed is only a fraction of the literature, as we discussed. There are a ton of other databases that you can supplement your search with, depending on your domain and your research question. And I've listed a few examples here. In particular, if you're searching on a clinical topic, such as interventions or therapies for a particular disease, I suggest starting in UpToDate as opposed to PubMed. It's usually more efficient to start with UpToDate to find references to the most important studies on a topic because somebody's already looked through, an expert has already reviewed all the literature and picked out the studies and evaluated them. More efficient to do that than to start in PubMed, where you might get, as we saw with some of these searches, hundreds or thousands of search results to comb through. For non-clinical topics, you don't necessarily always want to limit your search to journal articles. There are all kinds of other useful literature that might be published as like a report from an agency or as a book chapter. Like for example, if you're working on a global health topic, World Health Organization often will have a useful report that you can use as a starting point. If you're not finding what you want in PubMed, or you want to supplement your PubMed search with another source, email the library and we can provide suggestions. We'd also be happy to meet with you to talk things through. A lot of the databases are linked from the homepage under popular e-resources along with PubMed. If there's a database that you want to use that isn't linked on the homepage, you can find it by searching the e-resources tab of the main search bar on the homepage. Okay, so we're going to do another poll question. Give me one moment. Okay. Don't know. Is this refreshing for people?
Uh,
No?
I can see the new question on
You
my,
can. Okay, great. Okay, great. Yeah, so we'll take a moment. Which of the following statements is most accurate? Pick the best answer. Medline contains all published biomedical literature. Medline is a selective index of articles from several thousand journals. It contains meeting abstracts, and the indexing is done by web crawlers like Google Scholar. So give it a moment. And because I'm in slideshow mode, I can't really see how quick responses are coming in.
we do
So,
have a few people in the chat who are guessing B. So if people want to also put their guesses there, feel
oh,
free.
sure. Okay, move on to the next slide. Okay, looks like most of you said B, which is the correct answer. Yeah, B. So Medline is a selective index of articles from several thousand journals. Good job. So, let's review the big takeaways. We explained what PubMed is and how it's different from other search engines like Google. We looked at key tasks and functionality that you need to know as a searcher. And we shared resources for getting help and learning more. Oh, actually, we didn't get to that point yet. On the next slide. So we only had 45 minutes today, and we have just scratched the surface of the useful functionality in PubMed. So here's some other useful resources for those of you who want to learn more. First, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the library faculty and staff are always available to answer any questions you might have about PubMed. We can also arrange for customized PubMed training for your department or your research team. If you'd be interested in a longer PubMed or more in-depth PubMed refresher training with more time for hands-on activities, or if you want a more general workshop on literature searching, email us. We can schedule a one-on-one consultation. If you're looking for a self-paced introduction to PubMed, I think the official PubMed online training is the best place to start. There's also the PubMed user guide. Both of these things are linked on the PubMed homepage if you scroll down a little bit. The user guide is a good reference source if you need to quickly look up how to do something in PubMed. Those of us who are librarians will sometimes refer to the user guide to see like how something is indexed or interpreted. And then last but not least, we have video tutorials showing how to get full text of articles through the Wood Library subscriptions. And Vanessa's gonna send out all these links along with the slide deck. So I do see that there are a few questions, so I'm going to take a look at the chat. When we search for some literature using PubMed, can we write in the methods of the paper that we searched two databases, PubMed and Medline? If you're only searching PubMed, then I would just say you searched one database. Yeah. I mean, I would say two databases if you were searching like PubMed and Embase, for example. Is there an automatic way to import PubMed articles into EndNote from the search list? Oh, excellent question. Yeah, we didn't really talk about reference managers today. I'm going to stop sharing really quick, and then we have enough time that I can show you all how to do this. Let's go back to PubMed. All right, so let's go back to one of our searches. So to get things into EndNote or another reference manager, I will click Send to Citation Manager. And the default is all results on this page. I typically don't do this because it'll only get you the first page of results. I don't like that that's the default. I don't know why they do that. I'm going to change that to all results, and that'll get me all 67 results. I'll click Create File, and then you can see it downloaded into my Downloads folder, and then I can just double click that file and it will import into EndNote. And for those of you who are interested in getting started with a reference manager, I will direct you to the EndNote Tech Tuesday that we did earlier this year, taught by my colleague Drew Wright, and that's up on YouTube as part of the Tech Tuesday collections. That'll go over EndNote in more depth. Going back to the chat. Is there a way to set up alerts to let us know when research is published? Yes, great question. Yeah, it's the create alert is right here under the search bar. I'm going to log in first. Actually, let me see if it makes me log in. Create alert. I can maybe do this without logging in. Yeah, okay. So it'll make you log in. I guess I've done this with my Google account. And we'll wait for a minute. Okay. So yeah, then it'll ask you to name your search. I think it'll just do like it'll just use your search terms, but you can do it like a brief description to make it more succinct. The search terms are provided. Do you want email updates? Yes. You can set the frequency, what day you want it, whether you want just the article title and the authors and the journal, whether you want the abstract, and then how many you want. And you can do up to 200 items. And then click save, and you'll get that report. Some of these Vanessa has already answered. Is Zotero the same as EndNote? It has more or less the same functionality. You would use it for the same purpose. Yeah, so if you're already using Zotero, I don't think you necessarily need to switch to EndNote. Let's see. Yeah, so the get it at WCM video, that is going to be linked on this page that Vanessa will be sending. We have a few videos showing each one shows a different aspect of the basics. And then we have links to additional FAQs down here, as well as information about our policies. Well, that seems to be all the questions. Going once, going twice. If you have a question after this, you can email the library. Reach out to us using submit a reference question, or if it's just a quick question like help getting full text of an article, or like when our hours are, you can do the live chat. Yeah, feel free to reach out. And I'll turn it back over to you, Vanessa.
Thanks so much, Andy, for teaching us more about PubMed. Just so for everybody who may have logged in a little bit later, and I've seen some questions in the chat about this, we do have this session recorded. So later on this afternoon, after I post it online, I'll be sending all of you a follow-up email to whatever address that you registered with. that's where it's going to go. It's going to be a link to this recording as well as the links that Andy showed earlier. He did mention the EndNote session. I'll also be sure to add that. That is on the ITS YouTube channel. So I'll make sure to send everybody a link to that. So if you want to subscribe, you'll get alerts every time we upload a Tech Tuesday recording, as well as any other videos that we post that are, instructional videos about how to use multiple services that we support. So we'll definitely make sure you get all that information. Mohammed, I do see you have a question about some sessions for Embase, Scopus, Ovid. We have had sessions on some of these. I can certainly link you to them, and you can go from there. And if you have additional questions, I can try to reach out to the facilitators who did those particular sessions so you can, get more details, and we can work from there. Hopefully we could do more sessions in the future for sure, for Tech Tuesday.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah,
in the
oh, go ahead.
meantime, also Vanessa, like Mohammed or anybody else, like if you just want like a quick 101 intro to any of these, email us and we can set up a time to meet with you over Zoom.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll include the link to how you can reach out to the library staff for those quick training sessions. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us to learn more about PubMed today. Again, keep a lookout for that email from me with some follow-up details, and a big thank you to Andy for facilitating today's session. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.